Welcome back to more Create Integrated. All right, now hear me out. Today might be very ambitious. See, I want to try and fit at least a small version of a resource generating factory in this spot right here. But this is going to require a lot of preparation and infrastructure. See, there's several resources that we are going to need to move forward in this pack, and I would really love to have them sort of automated, sort of less manual mining that I'm going to have to do. But not only do I want to generate the resources such as iron, redstone, of course we want copper, and we want to be able to produce zinc and gold, but I also want to be able to produce each of these blocks because they're really nice building blocks. So my goal is, can I fit a mini version of all of these farms inside of this space? Well, today I'm gonna find that out. Now, the start and the basis of just about every single one of these farms is lava. So I have separated my main pump line and added a secondary pump. And believe it or not, this actually works. I just had to make sure that there is a source block directly above this piping, and it is another bottomless supply, allowing me to have more throughput because these pumps can only send so much lava out of here. So we are kind of limited by the actual pump rate. I do know that we could, for example, use refined storage and we could set it up to pull quite a lot, but I still wanted to try and use as much create as possible for this. So I have a secondary pump that is now filling the tank that is connected to our refined storage. And refined, I think, is what's going to be the thing that makes all of this possible today. Now, I'm starting to work out the dimensions of this area and like how much space I'm going to need, but I really don't have a full idea of how much space I'm going to need. So I think I may have given myself more than enough here, or this may not be enough at all. The goal, though, is to have like 4 separate lines, but 2 different processes that are technically going to be going on, maybe even 3 processes. We really need to produce gravel. We also need to produce Flint from gravel, and then we also need to produce magma or magma blocks or obsidian, either one. There's like a bunch of different ways that we could technically produce obsidian, but I would like to technically use some of the Rs to be able to do this. So I do plan on having some chains that potentially pull some resources from some other locations. That would be very helpful, and since we're already producing a lot of stuff, might as well take the resources from those places and put them to good use over here. So a little bit more pre-planning here. I've got my chain drive. Of course, this is how I'm going to power most of the machines that we're going to have down here through the ground. I really love the idea of having these like subsystems where it leads down, but I also want to make sure that I can get packages from place to place. So inside of the building, I already have an idea. I want to be able to use this in the future. So having this linked up and actually connected through the building and having a chain conveyor that runs through the front here, potentially to link into some storages that we can have as our ultimate output. Ooh, ideas are flowing. Now the chain's linking from here to here. This may change in the future as we may end up having other stations and I might find like better routes, but as of right now, just it branching across here is not going to cause any problems. Now that I've got some of this outlined, let's take a look at one of our first major problems. Superheating. Now there's a couple of different ways that we can superheat in this pack, but to be able to even work and make crimite, we have to be able to superheat things. So one of the basic ways of superheating is to just simply make blaze cakes. But there are a few other ways that you could go about superheating. I think blaze cakes, though, are still one of the simpler ways of doing it. Now, to be able to make a blaze cake, we first need to start by making the blaze cake base. And to be able to do this, you need cinder flour, which comes from netherrack, and then we also need sugar and we need some eggs. Now, thankfully, we don't need a whole lot of these, and like we don't have to make them very fast. So the eggs is not that big of an issue. We just need to have a chicken basically on top of a hopper that's just passively producing eggs. Sugarcane, really easy for us to do. We can simply use some snad. For example, this is some snad, and I can place some water. So let's just grab a water bucket real quick, place the water in here, and then give this a quick little pulse by setting this to 2 ticks. And, well, sugarcane grows really, really fast. Just like so. So we just need some sort of way to break and collect, which we're kind of already doing over here. We can just use a simple block breaker and we can use an item collector from Just Dire Things. We just need to take like the item collector, make sure we set our range by showing the render area, and we have that rendered area set. And then inside of the breaker, just give it something that it can punch with and set its ticks. I also like to make sure it can be controlled with redstone. And well, what'll end up happening is this will then be collected and automatically stored in the barrel. But we do want to make sure that this gets, well, auto-voided. To do this, inside of our settings, we can set our memory so that way only sugarcane will be allowed in here. Put in a void upgrade and just set this to void overflow. Allow a single slot to be filled with an item and void anything that overflows. So this setting by default is exactly what we want. And our allow filter is just to make sure we don't void anything by accident. Just make sure you have sugarcane set to allow. Then you can just turn this thing on and just let it completely fill up. And it should just void anything else. So we can leave it constantly running and we don't have to worry about it. Now, netherrack is something that does need to be produced because this is how we generate cinder flour. So we can basically take netherrack and we can crush it. Whenever we do crush it, we get a 50% chance of getting cinder flour. So what we need to do is every time we crush a piece of netherrack, we need to make sure that we always send this guaranteed piece back. And the way that we can do this is we can produce netherrack here. We can then crush that netherrack. When that netherrack gets sent out, we can use an andesite tunnel. And what this does is this is always going to force a split and is always going to guarantee that this is going to prefer this depot first and is going to always split that one product off. So what we should end up with is this constantly getting an item back, and then the bonus product will just continue on through the split if it does give a bonus product. So we can use something like the mechanical arm to pick up the items off of this and then just simply deposit it back into the basin, and we can just constantly generate netherrack in that case. Now, netherrack is going to need cobblestone constantly being sent to here. It's also going to need that other piece of cinder flour, and it is going to need lava. So down here, I am getting ready to run a bunch of cables from a refined storage system because I want to use an exporter to send lava. So with our exporter connected, I will take the lava, and look, lava gets automatically sent into the basin via the exporter. It's going to save us a lot of headache because as much as I love Create, I absolutely despise Create's fluid handling. I really just, the pump system, they're cool, but man, in automations, just gets absolutely messy. Now, after getting all of this connected in with a little bit of stress, all we've got to do is just make sure that this loop is going to function. Oh yeah, I almost forgot. I do have to connect this up. All right, so this is a really easy solution. We'll take this vertical gearbox, slap that bad boy on, give this a little bit of reach, and then give it a cogwheel. And then we're going to see this hopefully kick on as soon as we give it our first cinder flour and start the loop. So to do this, we are going to need first a little bit of netherrack. So let's start by throwing the netherrack into the crushing wheels. And is this going to function, or did I do the opposite of what I actually need? Okay, that is not splitting at all. All right, well, seems I have got this backwards. So in this case, what we could do is have the prefer nearest go this direction and just swap this out from an andesite tunnel to the actual brass tunnel. One of these days, I'm going to find a use for this thing, I promise. So in this case, I'm just going to set it to prefer nearest. And what we should see is when this does back up, it should keep a constant backup supply, and then this depot will eventually be too full and everything else will go this way. That's the goal with this setup. So we'll throw that. That will definitely send it. And there we go. Now we should have like this constant loop that is going to start to build up. And now, as you can see, the loop is constantly supplying this and cinder flour is constantly being produced. So I'll go ahead and I will power this whole thing up, and I've got just about everything running together. So this is not what we want. We definitely don't want sugar being produced, which is technically what is going in here. We need to let this produce its first blaze cake. So I still need some chickens. That's like the only thing. So down here, I have myself some hoppers that run into this. And the goal is for us to set the filter to blaze cakes and then wait for chickens to simply produce some eggs. But I've got to catch some chickens. And now with our new enchants, like just kind of getting around is so much better. I use hardly any of our source to just fly around basically. Oh, it's like a little glider. I love this. So I can simply glide around and yoink, yoink, scoop, and yoink again. So I'll just simply place these guys in here. Maybe there's got to be a better way. Yeah, there we go. That seemed to kind of work. And there we go. I can just basically breed them from here. That seemed to get the job done. And yeah, these guys should just produce eggs for us, and we'll see eggs in here over time. Promises no chickens were harmed in the making of this video. Possibly. There we go. We have our first egg, actually. That I just heard the noise and I was like, you know what? There we go. So let's add our chain drive back to the system and let's see if it's gonna actually make it first. If it does, perfect. There we go. We can go ahead and start using this as a filter. So that way we don't have to worry about it. But you could use a list filter if you really wanted to make this immediately. I just really love seeing the icons on here. And now we have one other step. We've got to give this some lava. So an exporter that is on a spout will be filled up with lava from refined storage. And then right here, we'll just have the product just land on a depot for right now. So now the entire system is running, and will actually produce blaze cakes. So let's see, cake base. Let's just make sure we drop this through. And there we go. There is our first blaze cake, which can now turn our blaze burners superheated. And this setup will get faster and faster so long as I have a few chickens in here producing eggs quite often. Now, honestly, iron is going to be one of the hardest things for us to actually automate because it did require this extra step. But the next part might be very intriguing to you. Now, I've started to define out what it is going to take to make this crimite and actually do the crushing. So we do need gravel and we also need flint. But we're also going to need flint for the other line. So this, I think, is going to be our flint barrel, while this is going to be our gravel barrel. And I want to now redirect our flint that we are sending over here. That extra flint, I now want to send it over here because we do have a flint processing line already over here. And I think that's going to be more than enough. So our packages should now get sent over here instead. We just have to set up the same setup that we have over here and put it on this side. And really all that is taking our frog's name, and I'm just going to copy it for right now, get rid of this, and we'll just move this over here and we'll have a new frog that's set up. So this whole process, in my opinion, quite simple. This is where our flint is going to go. We're going to have a frog, and we'll hook the frog up right here. We'll label that frog. And now this frog should be where the packages go soon. Just got to make sure that it is all connected up. There we go. And that actually got that. And there's our flint. So now any new flint packages should make their way over here. They're going to run through the chain line and then ultimately be collected. And so this is going to start to build up some flint. We don't have this up and running just yet. So it is a little bit, it definitely will cause some backup, but I'm going to get this fixed. So I'm going to need to work on this fairly quick. Now, the way that we are going to set this up is a request system. So we do have a bulk supply of gravel that is over here, and we need to get it over here. So what we can do is we can use a system that utilizes these stock links and factory gauges. So the stock link allows us to, within a network, see how much is inside of an inventory. For example, this inventory, I can see exactly how much is inside of this container by placing a factory gauge on this. But what we could do is we can place a stock link on this, and that can also see how much gravel is in here. And so we can click a factory gauge onto this to now link it to this storage, and we can actually request packages using this factory gauge in another location. First, though, we do need to tell this, or basically give this a frog port. And so we are going to have to connect the frog port up to a chain. And now this is basically a connected system. On this, though, I am going to set this to send only. But this is now a storage, and we've already linked up our factory gauge. So let's put this factory gauge to use and start requesting some gravel from this location and send it to another location. To do this, I want gravel to go into this barrel right here. So we have some gravel in there. I'm going to place down a packager, and I'm going to place a frog port that is linked up just like this. And I'm going to actually label this one iron and then underscore gravel. And I'm going to copy this name for right now. And this one is named iron gravel, and that is this frog port's location. Next, I need to then take that factory gauge from that location over here that we linked it up to and just place it onto this. And then I want to set gravel as its filter. And as of right now, it's going to say, hey, there is only one in here. But what we need to do now is take this and set its destination to iron gravel. And then we can right click and we can say, hey, let's request a stack. And this will actually read the inventory of this barrel, and it should maintain a stack. And as of right now, it knows that one was in here. So it should have sent exactly 63 to keep exactly a stack in here. So it'll only jam up the belt line here if, for example, this drops below a certain amount. And this system, in my opinion, is very, very powerful with Create and is what is going to allow us to have multiple locations like this. So we can actually connect up to that same gravel and use gravel just about anywhere around our base, so long as we have access to it or from our frog ports. So I mean, now we're almost ready to go. So we've got to get this into here. So for right now, what I'm going to do is just have everything being sent to the basin. We've got to get this powered up. So we need to say, hey, input from here. And then we want this to be the place where our mechanical arm sends the blaze cakes to the blaze burner. We'll plop that down here now. And now this should constantly keep that blaze burner superheated. Now with some funnels on here, this is almost ready to go. We've just got to give this lava. Just like everything else that we've been doing so far, a lot of lava is required in these operations. And let's just make sure this right now is producing gravel bricks. We don't want it to produce any of these materials. Let's say we may have to use a filter to get this working. So I now have a list filter. I'm going to throw in the crimite into here, which is what we're producing. Make sure that is all that is listed. And now there's the crimite. So once I have some crimite, I'm going to take the filter out and place that in because I like being able to see it. And then I hook up a transmission line and there we go. We are producing this. Now, the flint is not constant. We're not going to always be producing this like you currently see. This is definitely going to be split between how much flint we are actually producing. And so as I continue to develop on this factory, I am going to stop this production for right now just by placing a depot at the end. And this will stop once it, has kind of backed up here, much like everything else. Okay, so now that crimite's done, I do want to start working on this progression line to be able to get the copper because it also uses our flint. So in order to do this, we are going to have to use the exact same process that we just did for this setup, which does mean that I am going to need another conduit cage. Now for me to get another conduit, it's actually a whole lot easier now that we already have this set up. So we can take this and I can actually drop this over here and let this process up, and this is going to turn into a couple of different things automatically and a lot more effectively, specifically Nautilus shells, or at least it should. It's just going to take a little bit of time, I think. Any time now? Aha, yes, that took quite a while, but it is a 50% chance, and my goodness, that is good. Now with another conduit cage, this is going to be the starting point for our other flint. We're going to split the flint here, and then I'm going to run it down a chain. I need access to be able to power a fan. So we need a way to power the fan and a fan. And then we need a pump and a way to power the conduit. Because remember, the conduit does need water. Now, the way I'm thinking about this is the items flow up basically after they are split, and they are going to be dropped onto here, and they're going to have a 33% chance to be turned into prismarine shards. The prismarine shards will then need to be collected, and I want them to go inside of a crafter. Now, I want a barrel to be the thing that the crafter sends to, and we're going to use and automate a vanilla crafter here. So this crafter is going to need to be rotated around. So let's make sure that we get this in the correct location. Let's see, maybe I can place this here and then place the crafter facing this way into the barrel. We just need it to be facing the face right here to be in a barrel because it can automatically send the ingredients into it. Perfect. So now that we have this defined, this is going to be what actually receives the item and does the crafting. And we only are going to be doing a 2x2 craft. So 4 items at most can go in here, and it will fill up from this slot to this slot, then to the next one, and then into the next one. And then as soon as it has all 4 items, we need to send a redstone signal. So there is a cool trick that we can actually use for this. On the brass funnel, we're going to take some prismarine, if I do have some that I can filter. If not, I can go grab some. And I'll just grab some from my farm real quick. We're going to set this filter because that's, of course, just like our other setup. We want this filtered. But we want to say, hey, only ever allow exactly 4 into this at any given time. And the cool thing about this is when the items build up and 4 go in, we can actually detect when those 4 items go in, and we can send a redstone signal when that happens. The way we're going to be able to detect that change is with a smart observer from Create. We can place a smart observer directly on top of the brass funnel, and when items go through and actually pass through this funnel, this actually sets off a smart detector. It doesn't matter what funnel, it could be this one and an item go through, it'll send a redstone signal. And so in this case, a redstone signal will be sent, and we can just take a single blob of redstone, place it right on top of the crafter, and now whenever this detects an item going through here, or in this case 4 items going through here, it will then pulse the crafter. And in doing so, that craft will then take place and will send the crafted prismarine blocks into this barrel. We've just got to get it set up so we can see it in action. Now I did have to move this setup 1 block forward because I didn't have enough room for the fan, but I don't want this to look like it's skyrocketing up. So what we could do is we could use some chutes to get the items from this belt, which is going to be the flint, down to here. So we can put a chute here, and if we click on the side of this, it creates like a downward tunnel. So it's going to pull from this belt and to carry this down this chute and lead it down into this block right here. And I think that looks kind of cool. And this is basically ready to go. And this should start just crafting prismarine. As soon as we place down a brass tunnel and we start saying, hey, evenly divide this. So we can either split or round robin. I think in this case, I'm just going to split like whatever exists right here. I think that'll be a good way to handle that. So just the default. And then let's just go ahead and make sure this can run. So what we can do is we'll split here and make sure this is cleared. There we go. And so now that should start running, should start dropping this out. And something I did notice, this actually on the input of items isn't going to only allow 4 in. You have to go through a little bit of a different process if you're going to do that. So what is going to happen is this is going to fully back up with prismarine shards. And then every time that 4 goes in, or every time 1 goes in, it will send a redstone pulse. And so it's going to try and craft regardless. Eventually, though, it will fill up and it will craft the prismarine. There is nothing else that it can craft. So it will just start spitting it out like this. Now, the only other step in the process of making Viridium is to simply send it down the line, then to be shot over here, and then be just smelted. So it just has to be blasted. We have to blast our prismarine, and then we are ready to go. So with this, we can just use a regular andesite funnel. It's not going to matter, and it's not going to be fast enough to worry about this. So it'll just send 1 at a time, come over here to be smelted up. And then finally, well, this is going to start building up in here. Now, for the next 2 things, obsidian is definitely going to be needed. And we need to start by making these magma blocks and then converting it all into obsidian and feeding it into these systems. So how exactly are we going to do this? Well, I'm thinking a crafter might be our best option, and then controlling this crafter with a very specific timer and controlling that timing. But we do need to get 2 separate products that we're already producing over here. So similar to how we use this factory gauge, well, we can use this for our other factories. So I'll set up a packager right here, and this one is just going to have a stock link on it. And then it's going to have a frog port. And then I'm going to need a stone type. And for this, the stone type is going to be andesite. So yet again, we'll place a packager, and because of the range increase on our frogs, this should be able to easily reach. So we can actually pass through blocks and all that fun stuff, making frog ports a lot more practical. And there we go. And then we'll just determine our lines. For example, I'm going to put 1 factory gauge in the front. This one's going to be for stone. And then I'll make sure to click on the other network and make sure that one is set to the fire essence that we're going to need, which is going to be right here. So we'll link to that network. We have 2 separate networks. We just got to make sure to not get them confused. Before I start sending anything over, let's define the recipe. There we go. Then let's not forget our frogs. We'll call this one andesite because that's what it's going in. So after getting these labeled, we can place in our respected items, and then we need to make sure to select the correct package destination, which is going to be the frog port that is of course above it. And then we'll just say, hey, pull in 1 stack and keep a stack always inside of this barrel. And whenever this builds up, the goal is that it is going to keep this constantly filled. Then we can just use a pulse timer or a clock to be able to pulse this every now and again. I just don't want to be making too much obsidian here. Now, something that I've got to keep in mind is we also need magma blocks. So looking at our quest line here, Oram here is going to require magma blocks in its operation too. So not only do we need to produce in a line of obsidian, we also need to split this magma block into magma blocks and make sure there is a separate path for that. And a cool way we can split this is just by simply doing this, and we can use funnels. And I would believe that if we have both of these set up like this, it's going to evenly split the 8 that immediately get sent into this. Easiest way to test that is to just do the craft. Okay, so we noticed that didn't, but what if we set this to exactly 4 and set this to output exactly 4? Then what should happen is, because 8 is in the chest, it should evenly divide. And now we can start working on this line. So we need to make obsidian from this line and then turn it into crying obsidian, and then we need to charge it. So we can start here by turning it into obsidian by using a fan while items are on the depot. So we just set up a fan on the bottom, have that blowing into a catalyst, and we have this output here. We just need to do like everything else and make sure we have some sort of inventory that can pick it up. We're getting like the exact same design set up. This leads into the brass funnel, and then we just need to send it out to be charged. So I have a charger here with a single alternator, and I'm hoping this is going to be enough. It does require 4,000 charge in order to pass it on through, but it does split into 2, which this should actually produce quite a bit from this one little section here. And so this section is the azurine off the list, but now we need to work on Oram, which is going to be for gold processing. And yet again, we are going to need more blaze cakes, or at least getting blaze cakes over to a compactor, but it's just going to require water in the magma block. Out of everything we've done, this is by far the easiest process. After creating the belt line that leads into this and getting it lined up beautifully over here, also with a pump to be able to constantly feed this water, let's go ahead and break this so that way we can get that water in there. Perfect. Now we have just about everything needed, I believe, for this. So let's get the blaze cakes running so we can get this superheated. To be able to do this, I'm going to place like a gearbox here because we need to be able to power the mechanical arm. So we'll take a vertical gearbox, and I'm going to route the vertical gearbox here. And that way I can have the mechanical arm right here to read off of this. And then over here, we're going to have the output. We place this here, and then we just need a simple cog to give that arm some power. That is looking really good. And then we need to split this belt over here. So I'm going to stretch some power into our belt line. And then we just need to use a brass tunnel and set this tunnel to round robin. So that way it evenly splits. And then we can get this going by simply pulling this off. And there we go. We now have that superheated. And that is basically it. Now we get to basically turn this thing on. So all I'm going to do is place in this signal, and I'm going to set this to every 30 seconds. So that way it produces and crafts every 30 seconds here. And it should split this into the container, given that we're not giving this a strong redstone signal like we're currently doing. There we go. So whenever this pulses, like I said, on that 30-second timer, it's going to inject those ingredients into here. Then it's going to split, and we should see that split happen any moment now. It's almost there. Oh, there it went. Okay, it did the split. This one is cooking. We have to use a funnel. I almost forgot the funnel here. The funnel then is going to pull the items off, send that down to then be pressed into Oram. This then gets channeled over here and is now being turned into azurine. And there's our Oram. Oh, that is great. And you know what? If we wanted to divide this even better, because this only produces so many, I think we might be better off like limiting this and maybe giving this split a little, making this split a little bit different. For example, instead of 4 that we're giving this, we can give this 2, and then over here we can give this 6, possibly. I don't know. I mean, I think I would. I don't know. I don't know which one I want more. I believe azurine I kind of want more. That's more zinc than anything, and zinc is super useful. I don't know. You know what? I'm just going to set it back to what I had it. 4, 4. We're just going to evenly divide. That's just what it's going to be. No need for me to overthink it. I just need it to work. And as of right now, this bad boy is working. And speaking of working, we have Oram. We now have azurine being produced. We now have Viridium being produced. So much good stuff. And we also have crimite being produced. Oh, this is great. So now for the final step, we essentially just need to get all of the ingredients over here, and we need to crush them in a crushing wheel, and then we need to wash them. But this is where things get a little interesting, because I'm going to use sophisticated storage and storage controllers to be able to handle some things. So there is some interesting things that I want to do, and I actually want to use more than one storage controller. First things first, though, is getting all of our storages organized. For example, I'm going to place these into these limited barrels that are limited barrels 2, and then they have a compression upgrade because I want this to be able to support nuggets and also ingots, because both of those things are going to be produced from this. And so my storage is going to look something like this. I want some for building materials. I want all of my ingots to be compressed, and then I want all of the byproducts of washing. And this is where the storage tool is going to come into play. So this does have a couple of modes. You can see it has unlinking from controller, locking and locking, or unlocking. And I actually want to lock all of these now that I have them configured. This makes it super easy to see that the things that are inside are locked, which will not change. If I pull all of these out, it's still going to be the only place Azarine can go. Now, this is going to be the storage controller that handles all of the processing, but I actually want to be able to collect these building blocks before they even go into this setup. So to be able to do that, I'm going to use a scaffolding here and a storage controller. And so that way, when this is completely filled, any of the other items will just pass on through. So I have a storage controller here. And if we set this to the linking to controller, I can shift right click, and then I'm just going to add all of the drawers that are linked to this specific controller. And then for this controller, I can shift right click to change, and I'm going to set all of these to that controller. And yes, this is a wireless storage system. So over here, I'll end up placing this in. This needs to go the other way around, so that way when the items do go through this belt, they're going to pass through this and they're going to go into here. If there's no space for them, they'll just continue on and they're going to go through our crushing wheels that we're going to put here. Then we have this. So once it finishes going through the crushing wheel, it is going to spit them out, and it should end up right here, assuming that the crushing wheels will work. If not, I'll have to push the crushing wheels back one. But as of right now, I do believe that this will work. And so I've got to set a filter in here that filters for literally every item that's over here. Now with this in place, crushing wheels in, I just want to see the full processing effect. I know that this is going to work. So let's go ahead and send some items out. And okay, so already I know that the trapdoor is going to need to go all the way up here. So we've got to make sure that all of this stuff makes its way through. There we go. And then that should continue to get washed. And then all of the items that I have listed in the filter should make its way in here. So I'll give it one more try. Send some items out. And they get sent out. And we should see this increasing. Iron and redstone for one. Like, this is going to produce redstone, everything you see here. Okay, so I think moment of truth. Let's go ahead and throw this on here. So that gets sent. This will get sent. It's going to back up for right now, but it will not back up later on. That is going to run down the line. That's why we have those buffer chests. Everything should be going well. Unless this all needs to be raised up one. I think it's working. I mean, I should definitely check. We have items that have built up in here. Oh, no. Okay. So we do actually have some issues going on. Oh, no. And so I think just the big issue here is that the controller itself just needs to go one block higher. And another issue, crushing wheels definitely need to go back one. For some reason, it seems like items get stuck in there because there's like no room for the belt. Or no room to send the items. And there we go. Toss this set. And now let's see what happens. The items should get flung out. Yes, and there we go. That's what I want to see. So now I fully trust this to hopefully work. I love how I just say hopefully. And then place that in. Now everything should get spit out, as you can see, going in. Beautiful. We start to see the iron nuggets going up. This is more what I expected to see. Beautiful. Copper, though, still just hasn't made it into the line. But like I said, this will all catch up. But like, guys, I just automated all of the metal resources in one episode. Absolutely insane. But there is plenty more for me to do. This is just one of many cool automations that you can do in this pack. And this one was just jam-packed. I mean, this one's not even super efficient. It's just meant to run in the background while we work on bigger and larger factories. Man, oh man, just take a look at all of that automation that is going on in the background. Just so much happening. And hopefully you enjoyed today's episode. Hopefully you learned something new. If you did, be sure to click that subscribe button if you haven't already. And well, give this video, guys, a huge thumbs up. And now with that, it's time for me to thank the amazing supporter of today's episode. And that huge thanks is going to go out to Studying. Thank you so much for your amazing support in choosing to support me over on the Discord by becoming a Discord premium member and supporting my content in one of the best ways possible. Thank you so very much. And guys, more to come. I've got a massive factory that I've got to build with all of these materials, and hopefully you guys are interested in that. Episodes to come. So make sure you're subscribed, and I'll see you in the next one. And as always, thanks for watching.